All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about nepotism in Hollywood. But it's not just about, getting your kid an audition. No, it's this whole other beast, a really complex and honestly, often destructive system that creates this very specific kind of celebrity. It's a paradox, and it's one we are all completely fascinated by. How can having a famous last name, the ultimate golden ticket, also be the very thing that fuels a spectacular public implosion? So today, we're going to take a guided tour of this rigged game. We'll look at the stars who flew way too close to the sun and the system that not only gave them wings, but also sold tickets to the crash. This right here, this quote just nails the whole idea, doesn't it? The privilege that lifts these people up, it also acts like a giant amplifier. I mean, their successes are celebrated louder, their paychecks are way bigger, and their access to things is just unparalleled. But, and this is a huge but, there's a flip side. When they fail, their failures become global events. Every single mistake, every relapse, every meltdown is broadcast in real time for the entire world to watch, turning what should be a personal tragedy into public entertainment. It's a really cruel irony when you think about it. So for our conversation today, this is how we're defining Nepo baby. It's not just about getting a foot in the door. In this context, a Nepo baby is someone born with a kind of structural immunity. Their family name is like a stamp of approval, a get-out-of-jail-free card, and an endless financial cushion, all rolled into one. And that allows them to self-destruct in ways that would absolutely 100% end the career of any unknown actor trying to make it. And that, of course, brings us to our first case study, maybe the ultimate prototype for this whole phenomenon, Charlie Sheen. As the son of Hollywood legend Martin Sheen, he was basically born into royalty, and he seemed absolutely hell-bent on torching every single advantage he was ever given. His story is just a masterclass in how that dynastic privilege can turn a personal crisis into a bizarre, worldwide spectacle. Okay, so let's just walk through this career path because it is a story of incredible highs and truly baffling lows. In the 80s, he wasn't just Martin Sheen's kid. He was a legit acclaimed star in huge movies like Platoon and Wall Street. But then the 90s hit, and you see a shift. He found success in comedies, sure, but his personal life became total tabloid fodder. We're talking drugs, arrests, just chaos. And then in 2003, Two and a Half Men makes him the undisputed king of television, which just sets the stage for one of the most public and frankly weirdest meltdowns in the history of the internet in 2011. Yeah, here's the crucial part. It's how the industry enabled all of this. At his absolute peak, Charlie Sheen was earning nearly $2 million per episode. Just let that sink in for a minute. For a 22-minute sitcom. He even said later that no one with his kind of issues should ever be given that kind of money. But the network? They just kept backing up the truck, offering him bigger and bigger piles of cash. They weren't just ignoring the problem, they were actively funding it because the ratings were just too damn good. The train wreck was profitable. And this quote, wow, it just brilliantly illustrates the insane disconnect. While he's the golden goose of network TV, this was his reality. It's from his infamous Tiger Blood and Winning era, this manic media tour where he was calling himself a warlock with Adonis DNA. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He was the internet's favorite clown, a living meme performing his own collapse for an audience of millions, all while getting paid by the very machine he was supposedly fighting against. Okay, next up we've got Nicolas Cage. Now, if Sheen's story was a demolition derby, Cage's is like the ultimate Hollywood experiment. This is what happens when you give someone born into a revered filmmaking dynasty total creative freedom, unlimited second chances, and a complete and total lack of financial restraint. It is a journey into some sublime madness. So you have to understand, Cage wasn't born near Hollywood, he was born inside the palace. His uncle is Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather. But he didn't want to just be another Coppola, so he changed his name to Cage, a nod to a comic book hero. It was a symbolic rebellion, yeah, but as the source material points out, it was kind of like a rebellion with training wheels. Dropping the name didn't erase the connections, it just let him claim he was his own man while still cashing the checks that came from the family network. His downfall wasn't drugs or the usual scandals. No, it was what the source calls compulsive, deranged spending. This is madness with receipts. And the list is just, it's breathtaking. A dinosaur skull that turned out to be stolen from Mongolia, albino king cobras, shrunken heads, and even his own 9-foot pyramid-shaped tomb in New Orleans just waiting for him. His bank statements must have read like a prop list for one of his own crazy movies, and it all led to him owing the IRS tens of millions of dollars. So to pay off those massive debts, Cage entered what you could call his workhorse phase, just saying yes to a conveyor belt of straight-to-DVD action flicks. And this moment, from the remake of The Wicker Man, it perfectly illustrates what happened to his artistic credibility. He became a YouTube punchline. The Oscar-winning actor, once celebrated for his bold choices, was now a full-blown meme. His over-the-top style became a parody of itself that honestly defined his career for the better part of a decade. But, not every Nepo field collapse is permanent. And that brings us to Robert Downey Jr., the owner of arguably the greatest comeback story in modern Hollywood. He's another actor born deep inside the industry who fell further and harder than pretty much anyone, and then somehow, miraculously, returned stronger and more powerful than anyone could have ever imagined. His story just completely defies the odds. RDJ was basically marinating in Hollywood from the moment he was born. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was this influential counterculture filmmaker who was casting his son in movies when he was just a little kid. But that upbringing was a classic double-edged sword. It gave him an incredible head start and a deep education in filmmaking, but it also normalized a world of excess, of chaos, and addiction. It pretty much set the stage for decades of public struggle. I mean, the scale of his fall is genuinely hard to overstate. Look at this. He went from being an Oscar-nominated actor, hailed as the most promising talent of his generation, to being literally uninsurable. In this industry, that's a death sentence. It means studios won't risk millions on a movie that could get shut down by your next arrest. And then, he became an empire. As Tony Stark, he didn't just star in a movie. He became the beating heart and soul of the most successful film franchise in history. The turnaround is just mind-boggling. And this, right here, is precisely why it worked so perfectly. It was this incredible meta-narrative playing out in real time. Think about it. Tony Stark was a brilliant, charming, self-destructive billionaire who had to build himself a new heart to survive and find redemption. And Robert Downey Jr. was a brilliant, charming, self-destructive actor who had to rebuild his entire life to survive and find his own redemption. The casting was absolute lightning in a bottle. Audiences weren't just rooting for Iron Man. They were rooting for Robert Downey Jr., the man who had been to hell and crawled his way back. All right, our final case study is Drew Barrymore, a woman who wasn't just born into Hollywood. She was born into one of its founding dynasties. I mean, the Barrymores were acting royalty long before movies could even talk. Her story is one of inheriting both unimaginable access and just profound multi-generational dysfunction. This timeline is it's staggering to look at. After stealing the entire world's heart in E.T., she fell apart faster and harder than almost anyone. Smoking at 9, drinking at 11, cocaine at 12, rehab at 13, and then legally divorcing her own parents at 14. This wasn't just some teenage rebellion. This was a full-blown public unraveling, completely exploited by the tabloids before she was even old enough to get a driver's permit. But here's where her story becomes a masterclass in survival. She didn't hide from her past. She weaponized it. In the 90s, she just leaned into that wild child persona to reclaim her own narrative. Then, she pulled off this perfect pivot, reinventing herself as America's most lovable rom-com queen. After that, she became a seriously powerful producer, shaping the industry from behind the scenes. And now, today, she's this beloved TV host who has turned her messy history into her greatest asset, a true symbol of resilience. So, after looking at these 4 really distinct stories, the collapse, the eccentric, the comeback, and the survivor, what's the big picture? What does all this tell us about fame and family in Hollywood? Well, it reveals a system that is fundamentally rigged, but in a way that all of us find endlessly, undeniably captivating. I love this metaphor from the source material because it's just so accurate. The industry doesn't just give them a start, it builds a permanent support structure around them. Think about it. An unknown actor implodes and they do it in silence. They're just forgotten. But a Nepo baby, they implode in public, cushioned by second, third, and fourth chances, all because their last name is a valuable, bankable brand, even, and maybe especially, when it's damaged. And that brings us right back to our central question. So, is it a blessing or a curse? And the answer, of course, is that it's both. It is absolutely both, in the most extreme ways you can imagine. The name is an all-access pass that provides unimaginable opportunity and a safety net that literally never breaks. But it is also an inescapable spotlight that magnifies every single mistake, making sure that when you fall from a much, much greater height, with the entire world watching. And here it is, the final, crucial point. Hollywood keeps playing this rigged game for one very simple reason. The spectacle sells. The same industry that props these people up also profits immensely from the drama of watching them fail. Their collapse isn't some private tragedy, it's a public demolition. And in a culture that's driven by headlines and clicks, we, the audience, we just keep buying tickets to watch.